Go. Okay, so I will be using the chat box tonight. So if anyone wants to ask any questions or comment at all throughout it, just pop it in the chat box and I'll do my best to answer or respond to you as quickly as I can. Okay, so I'll just minimize that and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that? Where's my little chat box gone? I'm just trying to get my chat box back up again. It seems to have disappeared. Where have you gone? Oh, there it is. Lovely. Thank you, Farina. Okay, so welcome everybody to my imposter syndrome workshop. It's only 30 minutes because I thought rather than going off on one about all the background of it, we all want to know basically how we can overcome it. So I've got a little tiny bit of background, but the majority of it is tips of how you can overcome it. So yeah, should we get cracking? There's me doing a delightful little face as always. Oh, somebody to admit. Okay, so first of all, this is me. My name's Becca and I'm a personal development and mindfulness coach. I work with clients one-to-one and in group settings, and I also work as a social wellbeing and engagement consultant. That is a really long job title if anybody ever asks me what I'm doing. For a company that I used to work for. So I do apologise, other people are popping in now as well. And I love that role. It's the company I used to work for before I went self-employed, and they kept me on doing all the fun stuff I used to do because I was a receptionist. I'm a mummy of 2 girls, so I have suffered with imposter syndrome in a work setting and also as a mummy. And I'm passionate about supporting people to develop themselves, be more mindful, belly laugh more and embrace life, because we only have one, don't we? So I'm notoriously a little bit silly. But I just think, oh, well, I'm not going to be boring. I've only got one life. I'll be silly. So those of you that know me know I love a good quote. So I've got one here. It's not what you are that holds you back. It's what you think you are not. And I work quite a lot with mindset. So a lot of the time, these thoughts and feelings that hold you back are actually just your beliefs in your mind telling you that you can't do it. So that is what we're going to sort of talk about tonight. Well, first of all, what is imposter syndrome? So hands up, give me a little yes or no if you believe that you have suffered with imposter syndrome. So it's the feeling of being a bit of a fraud, the feeling of not being good enough, the feeling that at any moment you're going to be found out and you can feel like a bit of a phony and like you don't belong. So my kind of perfect way of describing it is you sometimes feel like at any moment there's a man with a clipboard going to walk in and say, you're not good enough, you've been found out, bog off. So if anybody has ever had imposter syndrome, please put a little yes in the box. Farina, definitely. Yes. I'll wait and see if anybody else has it as well. So while I'm waiting for some responses, who suffers with imposter syndrome? Now, anyone can suffer with imposter syndrome, but it's more common amongst high achieving individuals. Research shows that 70% of people are estimated to experience this at some time in their life. I know research shows that, but I would put money on the fact that it's more than that. I would say, in fact, I'd probably say the majority of people suffer with it at some scale or another in their life. And it used to be more common in women, but now more men are coming forward to say they've experienced it too. And a little bit of background about that is with women have experienced it more. That's from when obviously we were a lot less equal. So if anyone's seen the film Hidden Figures, I don't know if anybody's seen that. It's a brilliant film if you've not. It's about 3 ladies who work for NASA and the sort of struggles they went through being ladies in NASA, and they were also Black as well, so they had racial struggles there as well. So that is why we as women suffer more with it. But now equality is coming down a little bit. Men are admitting it. I know a few guys from work that admit they've had it in the senior leader team as well. So in what circumstances does it show up? So it can be in a work setting, in parents, in relationships. Now that's quite an interesting one, because some people, of want of a better phrase, may feel like they're punching, shall we say. So whether it's the male or the female, they feel like, oh my God, how have I managed to bag myself, this little treat right there. But I never thought of it like that until I researched it more. So I thought that was quite an interesting one. And then in any positions of responsibility. So that is the sort of main circumstances that it shows up. So I don't know if you're surprised by that. I was quite surprised by the relationship one. Never thought of that before. Anyway, down to the good stuff. Get your pens ready, because there might be some nuggets in here for you to take away. So 5 tips on how to overcome imposter syndrome, the bit we all want to know. That's what we really want to know, isn't it? Okay, tip number 1, separate feelings from facts. So you may feel like an imposter and you may feel like you're not good enough, but actually it doesn't mean it's true. So always remember that feelings aren't facts. And depending on what mood you are, depends on how you feel, which can affect your confidence. So always try and separate the feelings from the facts. Raise your awareness to when those feelings creep in, and also the narrative to say to yourself, and then you can be ready to nip it in the bud. So for example, in a work environment, you might get triggered by a particular senior member of the team. And that's when you feel like you're not good enough, that you're an imposter, and you think, oh my goodness, they're going to think I'm not good enough. It might be a person that triggers your imposter syndrome. So in that case, perhaps raise your awareness to that and give yourself a bit of a pep talk. More tips to follow, which will help you with that. But the more aware you are of when your triggers are, then that helps. And for example, on a parental side of things, if you know that when you're on the playground and you see other mums and you think, oh my goodness, or dads, and you think, oh my God, they just seem to have everything together. They're, always on time. The kids are immaculate. And you think, oh God, I'm not doing a very good job here. That, be aware of that's what triggers you. If it's the school playground or particular events like the nativity play or whatever, they're always on the front row. They always get there early enough to get on the front row. I don't feel good enough. Raise your awareness to when that creeps in, and that should help you. And when your mind tells you that you don't know what you're talking about, remind yourself that actually you do. So before you spiral it, so when I say spiral it, it means you sort of go from one thought to massively, oh my goodness, I'm just not good enough. Try and nip it in the bud before that spirals. So tip number 2, take note of your accomplishments. So this will help tip number 1. So create some tangible reminders of your success for the days that you feel less than. So for example, have a running list that you can add to at any time with all your accomplishments and qualifications. I recommend this tip to the majority of my clients, and they all love it. When they're having a down day, when they're feeling a bit, down in the dumps and feeling like they're not good enough, they pull that out of the bag, and it always helps them. And I always, for personal experience, I won an award at work, and the lady that ran the nominations and everything sent me all the nominations. So I keep that. So that's my little nugget there that I keep when I'm feeling like it, because even though I'm doing this workshop, I also get imposter syndrome. I've only been self-employed for 18 months. So you can imagine every sort of stage I get to, I think, oh, am I good enough? Am I good enough to do a workshop on imposter syndrome? Yes, I am. Second, if you get an email with some great feedback, save it in a special folder. And then again, similar to the first idea, you've got it there to pull out of the bag whenever you need a boost. And if your child draws you a picture or writes you a note to say they love you or that you're the best mummy ever, I've got one of those of my little girl, stick it where you can see it, because they're the most important, aren't they? So as long as they think you're awesome, that's the main thing, isn't it? They do, until you ask them to tidy their room. Tip number 3, stop comparing yourself to others. Now, I would like a show of hands here. Don't be shy. Who has suffered in the past with a bout of comparisonitis? I have, hands up. I think everybody has, but let me know in the chat box if you have ever suffered with comparisonitis. So first of all, when you compare, you encourage a lack mentality. So you need to focus on you and your achievements. So a lack mentality is where you focus on what you've not got or what you've not achieved or what you're not good at. Whereas we need to flip it so that you're focusing on all those accomplishments that you've got from tip 2 and all the brilliant things you've done. And that should help flip your mindset. That's another, I'm going rogue here, as always. I always go rogue, but that's why I talk about gratitude a lot, because when you just take that few minutes in the morning, or if you're feeling a bit rubbish or at the end of the day, just to focus on what you're grateful for, it makes you get rid of that lack mentality and focus on the things you do have. So even if you've had a really rubbish day, be grateful that you've got a pillow to scream into, and be grateful that you can put your pajamas on, or you put your headphones on and just listen to some music and switch off, because it just helps, doesn't it? And it's free as well. It's totally free to be grateful. Be in competition with yourself from yesterday and not those around you. That speaks for itself, really, doesn't it, that one? And when you compare your achievements to others, you only see the good bits. You don't see their struggles. And an extra little sort of note with that one is you could be comparing your level 5 to their level 10. You know, they could be further on the road than you. So an example of this, if I go from a parental side of things, is when my eldest was a baby. I joined a mum's group. It was called Tiny Stars, and it was a 6-week course for new mums. And all the babies were pretty much the same age, give or take a month. I don't know if anybody else has ever been to one of those. And I made friends with one lady, and she just seemed to be so calm and so like knowledgeable. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know, anyone that's a parent knows when you have your first one, you worry about everything, don't you? You've got a bit of a rash on the leg and think, oh my goodness. Whereas when you second one, you're a bit like, they'll be fine. Oh, they're eating a quaver that's been there for a year. Never mind, they'll be fine. But I was comparing my sort of mood and my skills with a mummy that was actually there with her second baby. So she was completely calm. She was fine about the fact that her baby was crying. Whereas I was embarrassed about the fact that mine was. So you don't know what you're comparing yourself to. You don't know what stage that other person is at. So in a work environment, that person could have been working away at that role for years, and you know, and they've got to this senior level or whatever level, and you might not quite have been as experienced or been there as long, but you're comparing yourself to this person. So it's a waste of time comparing yourself, because you don't know where they're up to in their life. So when you notice you're doing that, try to stop. Tip number 4, talk about it. Because like I say, the reason I've had 30-40 people sign up for this, so I would put money on the fact that the majority have suffered with imposter syndrome at some point. And that is why, because that's why I've got the interest. So talk to people about it, because again, would put money on the fact that whoever you talk to has suffered with it at some point. And it's nice to make it sort of real and get it off your chest and think, oh, actually, it's not too bad. This other person has had it too. So chances are, like I say, if you open up to someone, they'll know exactly how it feels. So you automatically feel better when that happens, don't you? It's reassuring. But when you talk to someone, you can quickly realise that you're following your feelings rather than facts, and get on with your day much quicker. It's good to talk. Was that a BT advert? So tip number 5, develop a healthy response to making a mistake. So remember, everybody makes mistakes because we're all human. We've all made mistakes. You know, Boris has made a few. He's quite senior, isn't he? Everybody does. We make mistakes. That's how we learn. You know, when we were babies, when we were learning to walk, if we didn't fall over, how would we know that you can get back up again? So develop a healthy mindset around mistakes. Focus on what you learned from the mistake. What was the lesson? So if something's gone wrong, you've done a piece of work, for example, that's not gone 100%, what did you learn from it? There's no point sulking about it. What did you learn? And again, if you've had a moment with your child, my 9-year-old currently thinks she's 15, so I'm having quite a few moments with her at the moment, and you've reacted in a way that you then later on feel either guilty about or thought that wasn't mature. What did you learn from it? How can you not do that again next time? And let it ruin your breakfast, but don't let it ruin your lunch. Just mute that person. So basically, if you need to have a bit of a sort of sulk about it, if you need to be grumpy about it, then that's fine. Let it ruin your breakfast, but don't let it last all day. Don't let it ruin your lunch. Here's a lovely story about what Tiger Woods does. You know, the golfer Tiger Woods, when he is having a round of golf, if he hits a bad shot, I'm not very good with golf, so apologies if I'm using the wrong terminology. If it was football, I'd be fine, but golf, apologies if I'm saying the wrong thing. But he hits a bad shot, then he gives himself 20 steps to sulk about it. And then once he's hit 20, he just lets it go, because what's it going to do? So if he's learned something from it, smashing, but after 20 steps, he lets go of the sulk and moves on and goes back into the positive mindset. So he lets himself have that little time until he moves on. So remember Tiger Woods. Bonus tip, I hope you all like this one. Turn imposter syndrome on its head. So do you remember the first slide I said, anyone can suffer with imposter syndrome, but it is more common amongst high achieving individuals. So if you do have it, think, well, I'm obviously a high achieving individual, so I'm not surprised. So yeah, I thought that was a nice tip, an extra bonus for you to think about. Yeah, when imposter syndrome does strike. So if you have a pen or piece of paper, I'd love for you to just take a minute to write down your main takeaways from this session and what resonated with you. I do have some more questions in a couple of slides as well, so get your pen and paper. So what tips did you think that you could potentially implement? What did you resonate with? Feel free to share in the chat box. That would be lovely to know what your main takeaways are. My favourite one is probably comparing to others. That one always resonates with me the most. But feel free to share what yours is. I'll give you a minute to have a think about it and write it down on your paper or pop it in the chat box. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so again, like I say, loved your bonus tip. I'm taking that away. Excellent, Farina. I'm glad, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. It's true though, isn't it? It's so true. Why not give yourself a little boost with a fact? It's not a feeling, it's a fact. Separate yourself from those. So I love a quote, and knowledge without action is worthless, by Tony Robbins. And fun fact, that's my maiden name, Robbins. There you go. You learn something new every day. We all know, we all can come to these workshops, read books, look on YouTube, whatever, learn these little nuggets. But unless we actually take the action, it's worthless, isn't it? So how many of us know, for example, well, it's January and that's what people are thinking about. If you wanted to lose a few pounds, we all know, we all have the knowledge to know how to lose a few pounds, don't we? So eat more veg, eat less dairy milk, move more. But unless you actually do those things, nothing will change, will it? Nothing changes if nothing changes. Told you I love a good quote. So pens and paper at the ready. What action are you going to take following this session? So if you do suffer with imposter syndrome, and going back to all those tips, what action are you going to take following this session? Feel free to share in the chat or say it out loud, or just write it down if you're not comfortable enough to say it out loud. Because like I say, if you don't take the action, you will still have imposter syndrome. So what action are you going to take, and what impact will that action make? Because unless you think about what impact it will make, you're less likely to take the action. So unless you see the difference it could make to your future and to your work life, to your home life, there's no point in watching it if you're not going to take the action. So have a think. Even if it's just one little thing that you're going to change, or you could start to say, my action is going to be, I'm going to write a list of my accomplishments ready for when imposter syndrome creeps in. And that could be an action. Or I'm going to stop comparing myself to others because I'm already awesome. So have a think and let me know what action you're going to take. And one sort of exercise, if you like, that I do with a lot of my clients is I'll get them to write down lots of things that they can do to move themselves forward, to improve this whatever situation it is that they're in, and then ask them to commit to doing one of those things in the next 24 to 48 hours, just to get them moving, just to start the motivation off. And then once you start doing it, then that's when you start moving, isn't it? Just taking that step to do it. So what action are you going to take following this session? And what impact will that action make? And remember that I can help. I'm a coach, that is my job. So if life gets in the way and you struggle to implement the knowledge you've learnt, whether that's tonight or any knowledge at all, or if you struggle to stay motivated and create good habits that stick, or if you need to work on your confidence, then get in touch, because that's my job. So here is where you can find me. So feel free, if anyone wants to give me a follow. You can sign up for my daily dose emails if you haven't already, because I know a lot of people have signed up to this from that. You'll be able to find the link for that on my social media. So yeah, give me a little follow, do a little screenshot and give me a follow. And thank you so much for coming tonight. Nice, short and sweet, some good tips, and I hope they help. So if anybody has any questions or anything, any sort of areas that trigger them, or anything that you would like a little bit of help with, then ask away. The question box is there, or feel free to come off mute and ask me out loud. I'll stop sharing. Well, thanks so much, Ben. What was the name of the film you mentioned at the start? It was called Hidden Figures. It's really good. And it's about 3 ladies that work at NASA, and they, unsurprisingly, had imposter syndrome because they were ladies in a very male environment. So they did suffer with it. But it's a really good film as well. So does anybody else have any questions for me? Not sure if anybody's typing or not. If you have some questions that you think of after this, then feel free to message me on my social media. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you all very soon.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.